Well, hello there. Cliff Ravenscraft here with another episode, and I wanted to bring to you today a story that I haven't told in quite some time, and it is a story that I believe will inspire you, if you are not already, to get yourself involved in a mastermind group. Now, the story goes back to 2011. And I had the biggest opportunity in my business journey that was offered to me, and there was an issue. I couldn't afford it. Or could I? You see, in 2011, I was invited to speak on Dan Miller's No More Mondays cruise. This was a 7-day couples cruise that was going to happen over Valentine's Day. The opportunity was by far the biggest of my business journey so far. And quite frankly, it was the type of gig that I often dreamed of landing. I knew that if I could deliver on this stage in front of Dan Miller's community, that the trajectory of my business would radically change forever. But there was a problem. I couldn't afford to go. You see, it's not that the money wasn't in my bank account at this point. My business and life simply just weren't set up so that I could leave my business for 11 days. At the time that this invitation came in, one-on-one coaching paid all of my bills. And if I left to go away on a 7-day cruise, 100% of my income would actually stop for the length of time that I was away. The temporary financial impact of this pause in our income and finding childcare for our 3 young children made me anxious. Stephanie was even more anxious about leaving our 3 children at home with a unknown childcare provider. Having either of our parents involved in this because of circumstances was not an option. And Stephanie, suggested that I go on this cruise without her, but also with her full support and blessing, knowing what a massive opportunity this was for this business. Now, I'm embarrassed to tell you that I actually considered going on this cruise alone. However, I knew in my heart that leaving the love of my life at home on Valentine's Day, caring for our 3 children all alone while I was on a pleasure cruise would be a decision that I would regret for the rest of my life. So there was no way that I could go on this cruise without Stephanie. And Stephanie, quite simply, was not going to go on this cruise without our children. So what in the world was I going to do? I mean, it was crunch time, and this opportunity was staring me in the face, eye to eye. And I knew that I had to seize this once-in-a-lifetime moment. I made a bold decision. We will all go. All 5 of us. The bottom line is that I had to make it work. The future of my business and the financial support of my family all depended on this. I did the math. I needed a way to generate an extra or additional $16,000 that would be above and beyond what I was going to expect to make that month. I also had to make the income in such a way that didn't require me working with folks individually one-on-one. There simply wasn't the time to do it in the amount of time allotted for me to generate that income. If you want to know how everything turned out, how this all came to be, I created a vlog, a video episode where I sat in front of my whiteboard and told the entire story about how this dream of generating $16,000, doing something I've never done before, became a reality as a result of my participation in a mastermind group in a single hot seat. Not only that, but in this video, I tell the story about how that one hot seat not only generated all of that income exactly the way that I needed it, it also opened up an opportunity for me to have an entirely new way of doing business moving forward. And in fact, this one product or service had generated over $1 million in revenue in my business in the years following. That's if you consider not only the people who went through the course and paid $2,000 a piece at one point, but also all of the profit on equipment sales for people who came through this podcasting A to Z course. So just imagine that. One hot seat generating $16,000 in the very short time span that I had given myself to generate that amount of income, allowing me to go on a 7-day dream cruise, having the speaking opportunity of a lifetime, which then opened a floodgate of new growth in my business. But not only that, it also, that single hot seat in a mastermind group, opened up me to the possibility of a brand new stream of income that would generate well over $1 million in revenue over the next few years. If you want to know what I believe about the power of mastermind groups, you're going to get it in this audio episode. Now, what I want to let you know is if you look at the show notes, I'm going to put a link to the video that I'm about ready to share with you, the audio from. The video has me drawing things on a whiteboard. There are very few, but there are a couple of video or picture overlays, and I refer to one of the pictures of the students sitting in my training space in my new home that I had built to do the Next Level Studio and all this other stuff. So there are a couple of references on here, but the audio alone, if you're not able to watch the video or if you don't want to watch the video, the audio alone tells the story about the power of this mastermind group experience. And I have a very special message for you at the very end. So tune in. Just realize this, the audio quality that you're about ready to hear is not standard for me, but it is what is typically acceptable, I guess, in a video where I'm using a different kind of mic and sitting in front of a whiteboard teaching. So just a little note about the audio quality. The content of the story is what's meant to inspire you. And again, right after the end of the audio from this video, there's a very special message that I hope you'll take action on at the very end of this message, this story. Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to another vlog where I'm going to be sharing with you a story using my whiteboard. Now, today I want to share with you just one story about how my own participation in a mastermind group has had a radical, profound amount of impact and influence in my life. Now, I could share with you tons of stories of how my life has radically been altered through several different key struggles that I've had in my life where I've experienced massive breakthrough as a result of my participation in a healthy mastermind group, specifically my own participation in the Green Room Mastermind. Now, for those of you who know me, you know that I started working first of all, I started out as a hobby prior to, this was like December 2005. And so from December 2005 to January 2008, I had this thing called a hobby. And I decided I wanted to go and find some way to do this thing full time. I wanted to find some way to generate income from my own business outside of my career as an insurance agent so that I could have the freedom and flexibility to do whatever I want with my days. It wasn't necessarily that I wanted to become a full-time podcast consultant as my dream. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to have the freedom and flexibility to create content and to engage with the community of people that were following me through that content so that I could have interactions with them and create content for them and outline new content as it comes to me, as I'm inspired, without feeling guilty because I'm actually sitting in an office where I'm supposed to be and where I'm actually paid to be doing customer service work. I wanted the freedom and flexibility to be on my own, create my own schedule, and I'd be willing to do whatever it took to give me the opportunity to have the freedom to work with who I want, when I want, at all times. And so in January 2008, I became self-employed. All right, so self-employed, 100%, this is me. The only thing is I had no experience in owning a business. I didn't know what I didn't know. And quite frankly, I was ignorant about so many things. I didn't know about pricing. I didn't know about products and services, what products and services to create, how to go about creating them. I had tons of content. I had lots of experience, lots of expertise, and I had very little knowledge about how to run a business. I also had several mindset issues. I had issues related to money. I had issues related to just believing in my value. I had issues where I believed that the more you hate your work, the more you should get paid for it. And so therefore, here I am doing stuff that I love and that I'm great at and that just is easy for me. And I'm supposed to be sending invoices to people who just spend an hour on the phone with me. And quite frankly, I've been dying to talk to people about this stuff. And people locally, they can't even stand more than 15 minutes of a conversation with me about podcasting. And here, somebody just spent an entire hour asking me questions, tapping into the things that I love most right now in my life. And I'm expected to send them an invoice so that they can pay me for that. I felt like I should pay them. So many things going on. And quite frankly, in my first year of doing business, by January 2009, I had gotten to the place where I was working 12 to 18 hours per day, per day, and I worked for 9 months without a single day off. So I worked 12 to 18 hours per day for the first 9 months without a single day off. Finally, and this was just to barely make ends meet. And not only that, but I also took 1 day a week off after 9 months, and then I actually just increased the number of hours that I worked. All right, so, and you've probably heard my story before, but within this first year, my accountant says, Cliff, congratulations, you're profitable. Most businesses don't actually have a profitable year their first year. Well, the only thing is my net income for that year was $11,000. So $11,000 net income. This was a little bit of a reduction from what I had when I was an insurance agent, let me just say. Now, also a little side note here, in February 2007, my wife and I became debt-free except for our mortgage. So we followed the Dave Ramsey plan, and as a result of the Dave Ramsey plan, we did become debt-free. We had an emergency fund. I was extremely well paid as an insurance agent, and so even though we only made $11,000 net income, we had enough of a financial buffer that during that year, we were still able to put food on the table. We were still able to pay our mortgage that we had, and it was the most difficult year financially. I worked around the clock. I had a lot of lack of self-confidence in my value that I was charging people for the work that I was doing. I had a lot of scarcity mindset. I had a lot of anxiety. I forced myself to work around the clock. And gosh, if I only knew then what I knew now, things would have been so much different. But I got to tell you, this is not the part of the story that I'm telling you today, but in January 2009, I almost died. And this is not just some hyperbole. It's not some exaggeration. I literally was in the hospital January 2009, and I almost died in the hospital. And I realized things had to change. Something had to change. And going back to my career as an insurance agent was not an option. So things did change as a result of this. I started changing physically. I started changing emotionally. I started changing and growing in so many areas, started studying personal development, mindset, growth, and I also changed my peer group, which is what I want to tell you about October 2010. Now, one of my favorite quotes today is that your life will be the direct reflection of the expectations of your peer group. I'll say that again. Your life will be the direct reflections of the expectations of your peer group. And in October 2010, I launched with my great friend Pat Flynn a mastermind group that we today call the Green Room. Now, it wasn't called the Green Room Mastermind in October 2010, but just for the sake of keeping this story as short as possible, it is the same mastermind group myself and Pat Flynn started. Pat Flynn and myself have been meeting every single week since October 2010. Okay, now,
In October 2010, we start this mastermind group, and somewhere between October and December 2010, Pat has his hot seat. Now, in a hot seat, you basically everybody in the mastermind group is devoted to serving you based upon their education, their experience, their resources, everything that they bring to the table. They're all listening to you saying, hey, you're in the hot seat. Tell us how we can serve you. So Pat says, hey, I'm working with a partner. Okay, I'm working with a friend of mine, and we want to do a 4-week group coaching program. Okay, and he explains his whole idea of the fact that what I want to do is we've got the topic figured out. We know what we're going to teach our students. We want to have we're going to do 20 students, and we're going to charge $800 per student. Okay, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to give them digital tutorials. We're going to create tutorials that will walk them through step-by-step screencast recordings showing them how to do the things they need to do this thing that we're going to teach them in this program. Another thing we want to do is we want to have a discussion forum where people can submit questions at any time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They can submit as many questions as they want during this 4 weeks, and we will answer every single question that comes in during business hours, but still they can post the questions anytime they want. And he says also we want to add a live component. We're going to do a live weekly group coaching call at the end of every week on Friday. So his question, he's his hot seat, he's like, okay, my question is, what software should I use for screencast recording? Now, he's already done some screencast recording, but he wanted to know, are there better solutions? So that's the first thing he wanted to know. The other one was it was also software related as well, but what forum should I use? I've been thinking, do I want to have a forum software that allows me to put everything inside of WordPress? I know there's lots of forum software that's out there that's standalone. What are the benefits and drawbacks of each? What have you guys had experience with? That's another thing he wanted to know. And then the other one is, what webinar platforms have you guys used? Here's what I've used, but I'm thinking, I wonder, is there a better solution for doing interactive, live, weekly group coaching calls? And so this was his hot seat, and by the end of his hot seat, he had everything he needed to pursue that course. Now, the interesting thing is that something happened with the person he was going to be partnering with, and as a result of some circumstances, they decided not to pursue that course. Now, that will come into play here in just a moment, why I told you that little story about Pat's hot seat. All right, so now we come to December 2010. Now, somewhere between January 2009 to December 2010, I happened to meet this guy named Dan Miller, author of the book 48 Days to the Work You Love. I heard about him from a guy named Dave Ramsey. So I was listening to Dave Ramsey as I was working the Dave Ramsey Total Money Makeover Plan. And he kept talking on his radio program about his great friend, his best friend, Dan Miller, author of the book 48 Days to the Work You Love. And so here I was struggling in my first year of business with this idea of charging people money, and I read this book, and it changed my life and my mindset about it's okay to pursue work that you love, and it's not only okay to get paid to do work you love, that you should actually be more successful by doing work that you love, because the more you love your work, the more you're going to invest time in growing professionally in that area, just because you desire to grow in that area versus trying to become better at something that you find soul-sucking. Anyway, changed my life, and I met Dan Miller as a result of setting it as a goal, and he started referring clients to me. That's a whole nother story another time. But anyway, Dan Miller invited me in December of 2010. I'm going to put invitation for speaking on cruise. All right, so in December 2010, I was invited by Dan Miller to speak on his No More Mondays cruise. Now, Dan had a history of doing these cruises, and he invited friends of his, people that he trusted, people that had high credibility, people that were a good example of the message of doing work that you love and becoming profitable at it. he's like, I want to bring Cliff Ravenscraft to teach my community about and tell his story of how he went from a hobby to full-time career and how now he's very profitable at doing what he's doing. Now, I will tell you remember I told you I changed some things and I started to experience more health and physical fitness. My health journey is improving. My financial income is improving. I'm studying personal development. I'm crushing it. Things are really great. The only thing is, though, is at this point, I am actually making $300 per hour. So as you can tell, from January 2009 to December 2010, things have changed a little bit for me. And by the way, as soon as I met Dan Miller was starting to had been referring people to me left and right. I mean, I was booked solid, sometimes 2 weeks in advance, with, 8 hours per day of consulting at $300 per hour. I was doing extremely well. Now, as you can imagine, I was digging myself out of quite of a financial hole during this time. And so by December 2010, we were at the place where things are just finally getting to the place where we have a little bit of an emergency fund starting to build back up. But here's the thing. This cruise is February 2011, and it happens to also be Valentine's Day. Now, the expectation on a Valentine's Day cruise with Dan Miller and his community is that, Cliff, you're also going to bring your wife on this. That was the expectation. Reasonable, totally cool. And I'm thinking, that's awesome. Stephanie and I will fly down there, do this cruise. It's going to be awesome. Wait a second. But the thing is, by the way, you actually pay for yourself on that cruise. Dan's not paying for your cruise for you and your wife. The real benefit there is that you actually have the opportunity to speak in front of this audience, and this audience could lead to some significant change in your business, which it did, and I knew it would. This was an opportunity that God was opening to me, and even at $300 per hour, what I realize is that I'm maxed out. I'm at the limit of how many hours I can work, and even at this price, and with my income tied to me working per hour for those things, this is a 7-day cruise, and I need to also get childcare for 3 children. My mom and dad are not an option because they own the insurance agency back here, and they're working around the clock. That's not a possibility. So I'm embarrassed to tell you this part of the story, but I reached out to Dan and I said, Dan, would it be crazy if I come on this cruise without Stephanie? And just so you know, it was her suggestion. And he says, and it's more to do with the childcare than anything, but I'm wondering if that would be weird or if you'd be even okay with it. And he goes, Cliff, I think that would be weird. And regardless of whether or not it's childcare or money or whatever the case may be, quite frankly, I think that it would be more damage to your reputation than it would be helpful to you in the growth of your business and credibility in the space. And I said, Dan, what you're saying absolutely confirms what was in my heart. I probably shouldn't have called you. I apologize. I'm committing to you, Dan. Not only will I be there with Stephanie, but we're bringing our 3 kids as well. And he's like, awesome. And so I did. Now, the thing is, though, is I realized I need to now, because it's 5 of us, when looking at the finances and stuff like that, we're going to have to drive down. Even driving down, hotel, gas, all that stuff, 2 days, it's still going to be cheaper than flying all 5 of us. So we decided we were going to drive down for 2 days, stay in the middle, and do the same on the way back. So now we're 11 days without income. 11 days without income. Now, of course, only 8 of those days are working days. So 8 days of $300 per hour is gone. Not to mention the fact that, it's just the cost of the cruise and everything else. And so what happened was in December 2010, knowing that this opportunity was coming, I went to my mastermind group and I sit in my hot seat and I said, guys, I've got a doozy of a hot seat question for you. How can I come up with $16,000 by March 2011? How on earth can I come up with $16,000 that is in addition to my one-on-one coaching between now and then? And I'm like, I don't know if this is possible. And they said, Cliff, that should be pretty easy. And I'm like, what? And they said, that should be pretty easy. And it was Pat who suggested, he says, remember a couple months ago, I was talking about my group coaching call, the one I didn't actually pursue? Well, why don't you do that? Mine was going to be about niche sites or whatever. So it's not any competition to me. Yours is about teaching people how to podcast. Why don't you create this a 4-week group coaching program where you give people access to your digital tutorials, right? You make those assignments. You give back people access to a discussion forum, and you do a weekly group coaching call at the end. And I'm like, that sounds amazing. And they said, if you think about it, you could handle 20 students, right? And I'm like, absolutely. And he says, you could charge $800 per student. That's what we were going to charge. Cliff, is that or is that not $16,000? And then I said, yes, it is. So instantly I went to work on creating a sales page for something that started in March 2011, known as Podcasting A to Z. Podcasting A to Z started March 2011. It started the Monday after I got back from this cruise. And the interesting thing is I set up a sales page for it. I sold, I think, 7 spots before I even left for the cruise. We were signing people up as we were driving to Florida for 2 days. Stephanie was driving. I had my laptop with a little Wi-Fi device. And I'm sitting there answering people's emails, exchanging stuff with them, and they're like signing up as we're driving. 3 people on the cruise, 3 of Dan's most influential members of his community, 3 of the most influential members of his community signed up for my Podcasting A to Z course right there on the spot immediately following my talk. And then I sold several more on the way back. And get this, the 20th person signed up on launch day. So on launch day, the 20th person signed up and I made $16,000. And I also had the privilege of the next 4 weeks working with 20 people to launch their podcast. And I got to tell you, this was revolutionary. Pat not only gave me the idea for this, but the assignments, the digital tutorials, just to give you an idea of the way we share resources sometimes, Pat had paid somebody, a professional graphic designer, to create a PDF document that his students could download for his weekly course assignments. He says, Cliff, here, I've already got these. I'm not going to use them. Here, you can have these PDFs. All you need to do is go in and change and take my logo out, put your logo in, and change the assignments to your assignments. And it's got all the check marks, everything. It's professionally designed. It's yours. Take it. And I'm like, seriously? He goes, yeah, absolutely. And so it just like out of the box, remember, everything was already pre-planned and all this stuff. And I was able to just apply it over here, not only with Pat's blessing, but with his suggestion. And all of a sudden, Podcasting A to Z is born. Now, I will tell you that right after doing this, I said, you know what? I was making $300 an hour for one-on-one coaching, but I realized this gave me leverage to scale. It gave me margin, and I stopped doing one-on-one after this, and I started doing Podcasting A to Z. I started doing it 4 times per year. 4 times per year. But the interesting thing is that after my first 2 sessions, I had so many people saying, Cliff, you're not charging enough for this. They said you should be charging $2,000. So I actually started charging $2,000. So you think $2,000 times 20 students, that's $40,000 per session, $40,000 times 4 times per year. And so all of a sudden, it's like, wow, this is pretty awesome. Not to mention the fact that people are buying equipment from me. I have these tutorials that are available. I made a lot of tutorials one-off, available for one-off purchase, and my income is going through the roof. It's incredible. All of this because of the Green Room Mastermind, the mastermind group where I said, guys, I have to take time off work. I'm currently maxed out on the number of clients I'm working with. I've got people booked up 2 weeks in advance, and even at $300 an hour, I can't figure out how I'm going to go away for 11 days on this cruise. How do I make this happen? And I said, I need $16,000 that has nothing to do with one-on-one during this time frame. And they said, that's easy. Do this. Podcasting A to Z was born, which, by the way, has since generated nearly $1 million in income. I shut it down in September 2017 as I pivoted away from Podcast Answer Man, and now I'm pursuing the Mindset Answer Man brand. So anyway, that was March 2011. But you see the timeline goes a little further, and I'm going to quickly tell you about what happened in August 2013. Just so happens that my wife and I were getting ready to go on a Disney cruise with our community, and we had, just before we left for the cruise, looked at a model home. My wife and I were dreaming of building a brand new home for our family to live in, something much bigger than the house that we lived in before. And I also, when I saw the model home, I went into this basement, which was massive. The basement of this model home was more square footage than the entire house that we had before. And I had a dream as I was sitting down in that basement that, what if this could all be my studio, my entire business in this finished basement, where I'm literally teaching a classroom full of people, which, my friends, is a reality today. But it was a dream that in August of 2013. And as a result of that dream, I knew that we didn't want to go into debt. We were okay with a mortgage, but we also didn't know how long it was going to take to sell our old home, which we had a mortgage on. We didn't want to have to pay PMI, so we knew that we needed a minimum. So we needed a minimum of $62,000 cash after tax for the down payment of this house. So we knew that by June of 2014, we only needed $1,000 down, but by June of 2014, we needed $62,000 after tax, above and beyond what I would normally generate. Now, at this point, I'm doing Podcasting A to Z 4 times a year, $2,000 per student, 20 students, right? So $40K per month, 4 times a year. So I'm like, how on earth am I going to come up with an extra $62,000 after taxes? And it's like, well, that's easy. Why not just do 2 more Podcasting A to Z sessions? I mean, you've got 12 months out of the year. You're currently only doing Podcasting A to Z 4 months out of the year. So I added some additional Podcasting A to Z sessions above and beyond. So the 3 dates that I'm going to share with you here, I had already had 4 scheduled on the calendar for 2013, 4 already scheduled for 2014. So I added September 2013, November 2013, and February 2014. These are sessions of Podcasting A to Z, 4-week sessions of Podcasting A to Z that were not going to happen had we not had the dream of building this house. But because we turned this dream and desire of building this house into a must, that's language we'll talk about another time, then as a result of that, I've added these additional A to Z sessions. But I also took off the limit of 20 students and I increased the limit to 30. I knew from doing this so many times that I could handle up to 30 students. So in September of 2013, I had 28 students, which equals $56,000 of income that month. I had November 2013 was 28. So I had 26 students, which was $52,000. And in February 2014, I had 30. I'm looking at my notes over here if you're wondering what I'm looking at. So 30, I had $60,000 of income. Now, if we add all of this together, which, by the way, if anybody's wondering about my live math, I've done all the math beforehand. This is $168,000 in extra income. This $168,000 in extra income would have never existed had I not had the dream of the house, had I not had a dream of the Next Level Studio, had I not had a dream of teaching people in this classroom. Let me throw up real quickly. Look at this picture. What you're seeing right now is a picture of my training space where I've hosted training and taught people, 14 people at a time, in live workshops here in the Next Level Studio. This is my dream, and had I not dreamed this dream, this $168,000 would have never been generated because I would have never hosted another session of Podcasting A to Z in 2013, September, in November 2013, and in February 2014, because I already had other sessions scheduled. That this was above and beyond. More important than that is the 28, 26, and 30 people. If you take all of that and add it together, that's 84 students. That's 84 students that have a podcast today that would have never had a podcast had I not dreamed about this space. That's 84 people who have a podcast that are creating content every single week where they are entertaining, educating, encouraging, and inspiring hundreds, thousands, and tens of thousands. 84 students who successfully launched a podcast that would have never learned how to podcast from me had I not dreamed of this home. And none of that would have happened. I wouldn't have even dreamed of coming up with an extra 62K. I wouldn't have even had the idea of podcasting A to Z if it were not back to my hot seat in December 2010, where all of a sudden it's like, hey, how do I come up with 16K? And as a result of Pat's hot seat a couple months before, all of a sudden he gives me the idea to do podcasting A to Z. Guys, mastermind groups are amazing. This is just one example of how I go from struggling financially just to make ends meet, working around the clock Monday through Monday for 9 months without a single day off in my first year, making only $11,000, having so much anxiety and stress that by January 2009, I end up in the hospital with massive gallstones, and literally they make decisions that almost killed me. Thankfully, I made it out alive. I decided things must change, and I started really getting serious about personal development and learning about success principles and stuff like that. And it was in October 2010 when I became convinced that the mastermind principle is something that I needed to apply in my life. I invited my friend Pat to join me, and the two of us started the Green Room Mastermind. We've been meeting weekly ever since, and my life has never been the same. And this is just one example of how I've gone to the mastermind group and sat in a hot seat and came to them and said, guys, I have a crazy dream, a crazy desire. I have no idea. I've been thinking about this for days, and I can't even think how this would be possible. And by the end of a hot seat, there are like 3 different options many times for me to choose. It's like, seriously? And it's like, yeah, I've done this, or you could do this. I know somebody who does this. I can connect you to that person. Yeah. Guys, I wanted to share this with you. I encourage you to actively engage in the principle of the mastermind group. And by the way, I encourage you, if you're on the journey of full-time self-employment, whether you're over here, you have a day job. By the way, if you have a day job, to be eligible for the Next Level Mastermind, if you have a day job, you do have to have a goal of becoming full-time self-employed within 18 months. And for most people who join the mastermind, the Next Level Mastermind, who have the goal of escaping the day job within 18 months, it happens much faster than they anticipate. And it's for anybody who's anywhere on the journey of full-time self-employment. There are people in the Next Level Mastermind who have 30 years of experience in running their own businesses. Full-time self-employed for more than 30 years. That's more than me. I'm full-time self-employed now for just over a decade. So there's people all along this spectrum. But one thing I can tell you is that everyone gets into a hot seat every few weeks, and they all experience this kind of transformational message, this kind of transformational information that's helping them take every area of their personal and professional life to the next level. And more importantly than that, it's not just when you're in the hot seat, it's what you learn when other people are in the hot seats. Even if I didn't actually end up creating my own 4-week course, I learned something when people are talking about forum software. It's like, you know what, that forum software sounds so much better than the forum software I'm using. Or that webinar software platform sounds a lot better than the one that I'm using. Or that software that you're using to record your screencast sounds better than the software I'm using. So every person's hot seat is just as beneficial as my own hot seat. I could tell you so many more stories, but obviously I didn't tell you this one within 15 minutes, so I'm going to end now. Guys, until next time, I encourage you to take every area of your life, personally and professionally, to the next level by joining or creating a mastermind group of your very own.
Well, there you go. That was the audio from this video recording that I did on my vlog several years ago telling this story. I hope that you are inspired. And like I said in the audio there, this is just one example. I could go on for hours and hours of telling you miraculous stories, how I went to a hot seat, sitting there with my members of my mastermind group saying, guys, I have this crazy, wild dream, and I can't get it out of my head, but I have no idea currently how to make it become a reality. And time again, by the end of a single hot seat, sometimes over the course of 2 or 3 hot seats, but usually within a single hot seat, I have multiple different paths that I could pursue to turn my dream into a reality, or at least have a clear direction and path on what the next steps are that I can take. It has never failed me, the mastermind group principle, and I have been privileged to have 57 people as of June 21st, 2022, come through the Next Level Mastermind. And that's what I want to share with you here at the very end. The Next Level Mastermind is for those who are full-time self-employed. This means that you own your own business. You're responsible for generating all of your revenue that comes into your personal and or professional life, and you do not have a day job. However, the Next Level Mastermind is open to those who currently have a day job, but also have a business on the side, and they have a full commitment to becoming full-time self-employed within the next 12 to 18 months. Out of the 57 people who have been in the Next Level Mastermind, there have been approximately 8 or 9 people who, when they started the Next Level Mastermind, they did have the day job. They also had the commitment to becoming full-time self-employed within 12 to 18 months. Only one person took more than 18 months to become full-time self-employed, and that person did eventually become full-time self-employed. However, the other individuals where they thought it might take 12 to 18 months, sometimes it only took 6 weeks in some cases. So if you are full-time self-employed, or you have a commitment to becoming full-time self-employed, and you'd like to do life with other people who understand what it takes to have the mindset of a business owner and to overcome the limiting beliefs and all of the programmed way of seeing the world with this mindset of being an employee for most of your life, if you would like to be able to experience the benefit of the education, the experiences, the skills and expertise, the talents and abilities of all of these other people who are day in, day out, running their own businesses and being profitable and successful, and sharing with you everything that they have in a spirit of harmony to help you achieve your dreams. And if you'd be willing to take your own experiences, your own unique education, skills, talents, and ability to be of service to everyone else in this group, I would love to invite you to apply for the Next Level Mastermind today. All you need to do, head over to nextlevelmastermind.info. That's .info, not .com. nextlevelmastermind.info. You can read all about the sales page there, but click that little button that says apply today. I look forward to the potential of maybe having you in the Next Level Mastermind for 1 year. In fact, it is a 1-year commitment to be a participant within the Next Level Mastermind, but I can tell you almost everyone does stick around for at least their 1-year commitment and stay on at least a couple of months later, if not a couple years later. And so far we've had, I think it's 7 members who have been in the Next Level Mastermind for 4 years or more. And as of today, this group has only been around for 4.5 years. So It's an incredible experience. I'd love to talk to you more about it. The first step, though, is number one, do you have a business? Are you full-time self-employed? If you have a day job, do you have a business on the side? Are you already generating some revenue? And do you have a commitment to becoming full-time self-employed? If that is you, and you'd like to participate with other people who can support and encourage you and work with you in a spirit of harmony to make all of your dreams become reality, then I encourage you to head over to nextlevelmastermind.info, apply today, and then after that, you and I will jump on a one-on-one complimentary 90-minute coaching experience, and after that, we'll know whether or not it's a good fit for you and whether or not, I invite you in to join and participate. So there you go. Head over to nextlevelmastermind.info. I look forward to connecting with you soon and potentially journeying with you for at least this next year.
Mindset Answer Man.